The fluorescent lights hummed softly in the hospital corridor, casting their familiar pale glow across the mint-green tiles. Sarah Martinez adjusted her blue uniform and tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear as she made her way down the hallway. It was nearly midnight, and the emergency department had finally begun to quiet after another chaotic evening. Sarah had been working double shifts for 3 weeks straight. Her student loan payments were overdue, her car needed repairs, and her landlord had left another message about the rent. Still, she moved with the same gentle grace she always did, checking on patients with a warm smile that never betrayed the weight she carried. As she rounded the corner near the waiting area, she noticed a man sitting alone on the hard plastic chairs. He looked completely out of place among the sterile surroundings. His clothes were wrinkled and stained, his dark hair disheveled, and his face bore the weathered look of someone who had seen too many rough nights. A small cut on his forehead had dried blood around the edges. Most of the staff had walked past him without a second glance. Sarah paused, studying his posture. There was something in the way he held himself, a quiet dignity despite his appearance, that made her heart ache with recognition. She had seen that look before in her own mirror during her darkest moments. "Excuse me," she said softly, approaching. "With careful steps, are you waiting to be seen?" The man looked up and Sarah was struck by his eyes. They were deep, brown, intelligent, and held a sadness that seemed to go beyond whatever physical ailment had brought him here. When he spoke, his voice was rough but polite. I'm not sure I can afford the treatment," he admitted, looking down at his hands. "I was hoping maybe someone could just clean this cut. I don't have insurance." Sarah's heart clenched. She recognized the shame in his voice, the way he tried to make himself smaller. Without hesitation, she knelt down beside his chair. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Marcus," he replied, meeting her eyes with surprise at her kindness. "I'm Sarah. Let me take a look at that cut. Marcus, don't worry about anything else right now." She disappeared for a moment and returned with a small medical kit. As she cleaned the wound with gentle, practiced movements, Marcus winced slightly but didn't pull away. Sarah worked in comfortable silence, her touch careful and sure. "This isn't too deep," she murmured, applying antibiotic ointment. "But you should keep it clean and dry. Here, ... She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small package of bandages. "Take these with you. Change the dressing every day." Marcus watched her with growing amazement. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," Sarah interrupted softly. "Everyone deserves to be cared for." She helped him to his feet and walked him toward the exit. At the door, she pressed a $20 bill into his hand. It was money she couldn't spare, money she needed for gas to get to work tomorrow. But she couldn't bear the thought of him going hungry for food, she said simply when he tried to protest. "Take care of yourself, Marcus." He stood there for a long moment, looking at the crumpled bill in his palm, then back at her face. "Thank you, Sarah Martinez," he said, reading her name tag. "I won't forget this." Sarah watched him walk away into the night, his shoulders a little straighter than before. She returned to her duties with a lighter heart, despite knowing she'd have to skip lunch tomorrow to make up for the money she'd given away. 3 weeks passed in their usual blur of long shifts and sleepless nights. Sarah had nearly forgotten about Marcus when she noticed a commotion in the hospital's main entrance. A group of administrators were gathered around someone, their voices excited and deferential, curious. Sarah made her way closer and stopped dead in her tracks. There, in the center of the group, stood Marcus, but this wasn't the same man she'd met in the emergency room. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his suit was clearly expensive, and he carried himself with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to command. "I'm looking for Sarah Martinez," she heard him say to the head administrator. "I understand she works in the emergency department." Sarah's mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Before she could retreat, Marcus spotted her across the lobby. His face broke into a warm smile, and he excused himself from the group. "Sarah," he said, walking toward her with purpose. "I've been looking for you." "Marcus, I don't understand." "What, my name is Marcus Blackwood," he said gently. "I'm the CEO of Blackwood Industries. 3 weeks ago, I was in this hospital because I'd been mugged while walking through the city. I'd been having a difficult time dealing with some personal losses, and I wanted to understand how people lived when they had nothing." Sarah's mouth opened, but no words came. "I dressed down and spent several nights on the streets," Marcus continued. "I wanted to see how people would treat someone who appeared to have nothing. Most people looked right through me, or crossed the street to avoid me, but you saw me as a human being deserving of care." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, worn piece of paper. Sarah recognized it immediately. It was the $20 bill she'd given him, now carefully preserved. "I've carried this with me every day since," Marcus said. "It reminded me that kindness still exists in the world, that there are people like you who give even when they have nothing left to give." Sarah felt tears gathering in her eyes. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You did what you would do, what your heart told you to do, and that's why I'm here." He dropped to one knee right there in the hospital lobby, pulling out a small velvet box. The administrators gasped, and passing staff Members stopped to stare. "Sarah Martinez," Marcus said, his voice steady and sure. "You showed me what real wealth looks like. It's not in bank accounts or business deals. It's in the size of someone's heart, in their willingness to help a stranger, in the way they see the humanity in everyone they meet." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring that sparkled under the fluorescent lights. "I've fallen in love with your kindness, your strength, and your beautiful spirit. Will you marry me?" Sarah looked down at this man who had appeared in her life twice now, both times changing everything. She thought about the loneliness she'd carried, the struggles she'd faced, and the way a single act of kindness had somehow brought her to this moment. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, I will." As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, Sarah realized that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can change everything. Her kindness had been returned to her 100-fold, but more than that, it had brought her a love built on the foundation of who she truly was. The hospital erupted in cheers around them, but Sarah only had eyes for Marcus, the man who had taught her that kindness is never wasted, it always finds its way back home.